What's up, everybody? Thanks for making it to this page, and of course our free course on how to be a better marketer in this business called real estate investing, and of course how to use our Driving for Dollars app in order to help you be that. Now, for those of you guys that don't know much about our Driving for Dollars app, maybe you've downloaded it, maybe you've used it, maybe you haven't. If you haven't used it, I suggest you do, but let me explain to you what it is first. It's an app that you download. It's called the Driving for Dollars app. We've trademarked the phrase, so it's the only one called Driving for Dollars within the iTunes Store and the Google Play Store. And when you download it, you get a 5-property free trial. And after that free trial, you can then pick which tier you want to have. And when you do that, it basically lets you pull a certain amount of data each month under that tier. And so you can just kind of pick the tier that works best for you, depending on how many properties you want to add in any given month, or depending on how much list building you're doing in any given month. Now that's the first part of this whole thing, right? You have to build the lists in order to then be able to market to the lists. So you've got to figure out what your farm areas are, then you've got to go out into those farm areas and you have to build the list, whether it's you or people on your team, but you can pick the tier that's most appropriate based on how many properties you think that you're going to pull or put on a list in any given month. Now for us internally here, we have about 27,000 properties in total on our Driving for Dollars list, but we've done that over years and years and years. It's taken a very long time to get there. In any given month, we probably don't add more than maybe 300 in a month. We would probably be on the $99 a month plan in order to get us up to 500 skip trace properties in any given month, and that would be more than sufficient for what it is that we would need to do in any given month. So that's just how we work internally. But like I said, our overall list is much larger because we do it every week, week in and week out, and every month, month in and month out. So that's kind of how the app works. Now, what does the app give you? Let's go through that first, because once I talk about all the data that the app gives you, then we can talk about how to use the data in order to be a better marketer, because at the end of the day, that is what separates kind of the men from the boys in this business, right? The good from the great. The good find okay deals, the great find amazing deals. And so to find amazing deals, you have to go places that are not as visible to everybody, right? If you go to the auction, if you go to RMLS, those types of places are seen by everybody, which means maybe you get a good deal at best. If you go places that not everybody sees it, that's where you can find the great deals. And to find the great deals, you have to go off market, and to go off market, you need to be able to market directly to homeowners, and that's what our app allows you to do with the data that it provides. So let's talk about what you get. Now, of the tiers that I talked about, every time you get a property that delivers you this information, it counts towards the number of skip traces that you get in any given tier. So hopefully that makes sense. Now, the information you get, number one is owner name, first and last, right? Could be multiple owners, but knowing who owns the property is obviously important for a variety of reasons. You get the mailing address as well as the physical address. Sometimes that's the same property. If it's an owner-occupied property, you're mailing to the property that you see. If it's an absentee-owned property or an investment property, then you're going to be mailing to another address, and that's where skip tracing is often better than public records, because sometimes public records doesn't have the most up-to-date address that somebody may be living at. So that having a skip trace version of the data helps you connect with people where otherwise you might just get return mail, or you might send it to the subject property when they're not actually there and it may not get forwarded to them. The next thing you get is phone number. You get mobile and landline. Obviously the difference is one's a cell phone, one's a landline, but it's important to know the difference because you can then do different types of marketing to it down the line. For example, ringless voicemails, you can't send those to landlines, but you can cold call landlines, right? So knowing the difference between the two when you get the data is important, and our app allows you to decipher the difference. It puts a mobile indicator or a landline indicator on the numbers. That way you know how to load those numbers into your marketing, whatever that may be. If you're going to be doing ringless voicemail, text blast, or whether or not you need to use those numbers to do cold calling or something like that. And we'll get into that here more in just a second. The next thing that you get is email address, right? Email address is a great thing for a variety of different reasons, and once you get that email address, you can do a bunch of different things with it. And I'll go into the different types of layering strategies that you can utilize with email address here in just a couple of minutes. The next piece of information that you get is the IP address, right? An IP address is essentially your internet address, right? So imagine your house. Your house has an address. It's a street address. Well, your ability to tie into the internet also has an address, and that's called an IP address. And with an IP address, you can do all kinds of marketing to people with that IP address. You can market directly into their phones. You can market to their computers, whatever it is that they're accessing the internet from. And so having that is a great piece of information. You also get an alternative mailing address if need be. If it's not the actual property that the person is living in, you get the last sale date for the subject property, so you know when it last sold, which if something sold a year ago, it may not be worth spending as much effort marketing in order to get that seller to have a conversation with you versus a property that sold 10 years ago or 20 years ago. If it sold that long ago, then there's a much higher chance that there's equity that's accrued. Also, that the seller may be willing to sell and that there's some deferred maintenance that may have happened, right? If somebody just bought it a year ago, the chances of it being a deal for you, probably not great, especially if they paid close to retail at that point in time. The other thing that it'll tell you is the last sale price, so you can get an indicator, and that ties into what I just said previously. If it sold a year ago and you know what it sold for, and you need to buy it at 100 grand less than that, the chances of you getting a deal out of that particular homeowner, probably not very good. It's just not a high likelihood. But if it sold 10 years ago and it sold for a very low amount compared to what it would be worth today, that would be a potentially very good lead if you could get them to contact you or you could contact them and have a conversation, right? The other thing it gives you is age of owner, right? A lot of people pull bulk lists based on the age of the property owner. Well, with our app, it gives you the age of the owner so that you can determine within the data that it gives you, okay, this person is 45 or this person's 65 or this person's 85 or 90, right? As they start to get up in age, you can then rank that lead as well. Is that lead worth spending more time, money, or effort, or a combination of those things, in order to get them to have a conversation with you? And so we do that all the time, and so that's why we included age as some of the data that you get from the app. It also gives you a deceased indicator, right? If you pull the information on who owns the property and you see that they're 85 years old, but it also shows that they're deceased, right? Well, that means that they may have recently died. And if they recently died, as morbid as it is, there's some estate things that need to take place, right? A probate needs to be filed, or if the property is in the name of the trust, or it's owned by the trust, then it needs to be liquidated in order for those assets to then be distributed to the next of kin, or the heirs, right? Or the beneficiaries of that estate. So knowing whether or not somebody is deceased or not, although it's a terrible thing for somebody to die, it's important for you as an investor to know, because if they're still entitled to the property, then that means that property needs to be dealt with and likely needs to be sold at a future date, we'll say, right? And then last but not least, it gives you a bankruptcy indicator. And this on its own is not a huge indicator, but you can kind of layer it in with everything. It basically says, hey, has this property owner had financial issues in the past? And if they have, then there may be some opportunity for you to solve some issues now in the future. Because a lot of times when people file bankruptcy once, they may need to do it again and again because it's just how they live their life. So it's an indicator of potential motivation for the owner of the property. One other thing that people often ask about the app is, well, what if I have an old list, right, that isn't in the app as of yet? Maybe I did a Driving for Dollars list previously, or maybe I did some manual Driving for Dollars lists that I've uploaded into Excel, or somehow I have those lists. Or it's just another list, another specialty list or another bulk list of some sort, right? Can I run that list through the app in order to get the skip traces done? And the answer to that is no. And so what we do is we'll actually skip trace those lists for you on the side. So you can reach out to us directly. You can send us a message via the Facebook page. You can send us an email. We'll put all that information in the links below. And we can actually do skip tracing for you outside of the app on all of these old lists that you've created, whether they're Driving for Dollars lists or other specialty lists or other filtered lists that you've created. And so if you have those lists, we can definitely skip trace them for you with the same skip tracing data that we pull through the app. As far as pricing goes, it's as competitive as you're going to find anywhere. And as far as the quality of the data goes, it's as good as you're going to find anywhere. And it's the same data, of course, that we utilize in the app. You can reach out to us and get exact pricing on all that depending on the size of your list, but I can assure you that it's as competitive as you're going to find. We make sure that we stay competitive so that way we take care of you as a Driving for Dollars app customer. Now, let's talk about how to use the data that we provide you in the app. This is the most important part, right? We provide you all this data. I told you what the data is. Now, how do we use it in order to find better deals and to ultimately be a better marketer, right? That's why I'm doing this video. That's hopefully what you get out of all of this, right? You can read the description on the app and it tells you everything that it gives you, but what you can't do is take that and figure out how to be a better marketer with it. And so that's what I want to teach you here. So the first thing that we do with the data that we get from our Driving for Dollars app is we send direct mail. Now, direct mail is the foundation of all of our marketing. Now, some people say that direct mail is dead, it doesn't work well, yada, yada, yada. The truth is that it doesn't work as well as it used to. There's absolutely no question to that. But it still works phenomenally well if you do it correctly. And when I say do it correctly, I mean a couple of things. Number one is you don't go pull a ginormous list and send out a ton of mail all at once, right? It's not the right way to do it because there's a lot of skills that you need to acquire and build along the way in order to make sure that you're getting the most bang for your buck or the most deals from the leads, whether that's talking to sellers, whether that's identifying value, whether that's connecting with sellers, whether that's recognizing motivation and opportunity. All these things are skills that you hone over time as you talk to sellers and as you take leads. But in order to talk to sellers, in order to get leads into our business here, our main driver is direct mail. So it starts with creating a list, right? You use the app to create the list. From that data that the app provides, you get the homeowner's name and you get their mailing address. Now, you want to send them a direct mail piece. Now, with that direct mail piece, you want to make sure that it's direct response marketing, right? There's a lot of people that do brand marketing, like Coke, Pepsi, things like that. It's like, hey, we're Coke, we're Pepsi, drink us, right? Well, in this business, you want to make sure that the marketing that you're doing is direct response marketing. What that means is it directly gets them to respond to the marketing piece that you're sending them. It says, I can do this for you. This is why you should contact me. And you want to make sure that that piece talks about all the things that you can do for them. You want to talk about what you can do for them and not how great you are. They don't care how great you are. They just want to know what you can do for them. And so that's what a direct response marketing piece is. Now, if you marry that together with the direct mail piece, basically what you get is a high quality piece that gets somebody's attention, that gets them to hopefully pick up the phone and give you a call. Or at a minimum, they email you, they send you a Facebook message, whatever it is or whatever medium it is that they like to communicate with you best first, so that then you can start a conversation and ultimately build a relationship. So with direct mail, the biggest piece of advice that I'll give you is try and stand out. Try and be different. Back in the day, you used to be able to send yellow letters. You could send 300 yellow letters and you could get 50 phone calls. No kidding. That's what it was back in the day. Not anymore though. It's very competitive compared to what it used to be, and there's a lot more people doing direct mail. So you have to think about what it is that you're sending, right? Don't just copy what everybody else does, because if you do that, you're going to have to send a ton of direct mail in order to get enough of it to stick and people to pay attention so that they call you and you have leads to work with. So instead of trying to spend more than everybody else, create a very niche list of properties that absolutely should be bought by investors via the app, and then send them very creative mail. If you do that, I guarantee you'll get a lot more calls than if you did the opposite, which is basically pull a list and send them your generic yellow postcards or generic yellow letters. You can do it, but you're going to have to send a lot of them to get the same results. So that's, I guess, marketing secret number one, we'll say. Number two is you have to be consistent. I cannot tell you how many times I've heard people say direct mail doesn't work. And I say, well, how many times have you mailed that list? And they say once, right? I got 2 calls, I didn't get a deal. Well, that's pretty much going to be the standard answer if you take a list, you mail it one time, and you don't follow up with it, right? And you don't continue to mail it, and you don't continue to get in front of these people. If you do that, you might as well just not mail it, at least right now with where we're at in the market cycle. And so my suggestion number one is be different with your marketing piece, right? Stand out from the crowd, put some thought into it, have it be a direct response piece that's all about them. Number two is you need to be consistent with the mail that you send. So don't go create a list that's so huge that you can only mail to it one time. Basically meaning you've only got the budget to mail to it one time. You don't want to do that. You want to build a list that is big enough that you have a good enough subset of leads in order to market to them, but not so big that you can't market to them on a continual basis. Be consistent. That's the big thing. And make sure that within that consistency, you're mailing a list that you can actually afford to mail over and over again. Now, in terms of the amount of time in between mailings, there's a few schools of thought on that. For us, we will generally, if it's a brand new list, we will mail them in about a 2-week interval starting off. The reason being is because it gets people's attention to mail that close together initially. Beyond that, we'll mail them probably once a quarter. There's no reason to really mail them more than that, especially with driving for dollars leads, because if you do, you're probably wasting your money, because people need to have a change in life or circumstance in order for them to want to sell their property. And so the idea is, after you get their attention initially and they learn who you are by the branding and the piece that you send them, you then want to stay relevant to them. And if you stay relevant to them long enough, eventually timing will work out and they will call you when they're thinking about selling. And so you have to have timing line up with driving for dollars leads, and that's why I wouldn't suggest that you mail them more than once a quarter. after an initial blast. That way you just stay relevant with them and you're able to do it on a manageable budget. Now, the other thing is, within the piece that you send them, you want to make sure that there's multiple ways for them to contact you, right? They can call you, but some people don't like to call right away. So they could text you. You might have some sort of a prompt at the bottom to say, hey, if you don't want to call, make sure to shoot us a text. Give them an email address, number 3. Or number 4, they can send you a Facebook message, right? Give them multiple ways to contact you. Some people don't like to talk on the phone right away. They're just not comfortable doing that, and that's fine. And so if they're not, just make sure to give them other ways to contact you. You'll be amazed at how many people actually reach out to you if you give them options and ways to do it. To recount that real quick, you got phone, you got email, you got website, of course. You should have a website. If you don't, at least have a Facebook page, a business Facebook page where they can send you a message, but you should definitely have a website as well if you're going to pay for marketing directly to sellers. They need to see that you're real, and you need to have a way for them to fill out a form on that site that gets delivered directly to you. And then, of course, you need email as well that goes along with that, so they can send you an email if they don't want to fill out the form on the site. Text message as well, and smoke signal, I guess, if you want it, right? So that's direct mail marketing. You have to make sure that you're consistent, that you send a direct response piece that's a quality piece that stands out from the crowd, and you have to give people multiple ways to contact you and ultimately to remember you, right? So that's the first thing. The second piece of information or data that you get from the app that's super important to use in your marketing is phone number. Now, phone number is a big thing. And like I said initially, the types of phone numbers we give you is we give you landline and we give you cell number. Now, with landlines, it's pretty cut and dry. You're going to need to cold call these people. And we do a lot with properties that are A-plus properties or properties that we want to redevelop. So we know exactly what we're going after and we want to redevelop them. With mobile numbers, we send them ringless voicemails. Now, the way we do ringless voicemails is we utilize the ROAR system. And we'll overlay some footage here so you can see the system that we use, but it's ROAR, R-O-O-R, and it's the most cost-effective way to stay relevant and layer your marketing that there is. You can send them ringless voicemails or you can send them text messages. I suggest you test text messages in your market to see how those resonate with sellers, because if it pisses more people off than it doesn't, then maybe it's not a great idea to use them. But if in your market people are kind of willing to start a conversation via text before they talk to you, then use it because it's a great cost-effective way to layer your marketing. Now with us, we use RVMs mainly. We use text secondary. And the way we do our RVMs is that we'll follow up a mail piece with an RVM. That's called layering, right? Mail is most expensive. RVM is very inexpensive, and then potentially a text message after that, right? There's the sequence, there's the layering, and then maybe even an email after that, but we'll get into that here in a second. So that's the layering, that's the process as it goes through the marketing engine, any given lead that we pull through the app, right? Start with mail, hit them with an RVM, maybe hit them with a text message, hit them with an email, and you kind of continue that cycle over and over again. And really, that's the secret sauce, to be honest with you. So if you are not set up with an RVM text provider, I strongly encourage you guys to use ROAR. We'll put a link down below. You can click on them. You can go get an account set up with them. If you use the promo code REALDEALS, that's deals with a Z, you'll get 0 sign-up fees and 0 monthly minimum. So we put together a great deal for you guys. We use ROAR every single day in our own business. We're literally blasting RVMs right now, and we've been using them for a long time, and we have absolutely no complaints. So go check out the link below and make sure that you use the promo code REALDEALS, and that's deals with a Z. So after you get the who owns the property, what their property address is, their phone numbers, potentially a landline and a cell line, depending on how you want to use those or both to market to them, you also get email address. Now, email address, as I mentioned just previously on how to layer, you can send people a cold email. Well, it's somewhat cold email, but you can send them an email after you mail them. You send them an RVM, you potentially text them, and you email them, but you can also use those emails to find people's social media profiles. And if you find those, you can reach out to them in different ways as well. But I want to focus on real quick emails. If you're going to email people, make sure that you have a creative headline and you have a very concise, simple message. If you guys Google the 7-word email by an individual named Dean Jackson, it's a great way to start a conversation with a cold email. It gets people. It's like a hook and a fish, right? It gets them to respond even if you don't know them. You'll be amazed. So if you're going to use email as a way to contact people, make sure that you use a 7-word type email. You can use that email in order to just try and solicit some sort of communication with them, or you can use that email. You can load it into a social media platform and you can find people's profiles. And if you find their profiles, you can run ads to them, you can send them messages, you can do all kinds of things with that. So that email is very important on many different levels. Now, when you go and you upload those emails into Facebook, let's say, right, you can create a custom audience. And that custom audience, so like, let's say you go to a Driving for Dollars list, right, that you build through the app. You then get email addresses for all the people or most of the people on that list. You then load those email addresses into Facebook. Now you've created a custom audience. You could message a lot of those people if you want to, but if you don't feel bold or you want to just kind of build your brand and get in front of them more before you do that, you can create this custom audience and you can run direct response ads in Facebook, which is almost like a direct mail piece, but in Facebook, to these people, right? And so if you do that around the same time that you're mailing them and you're sending them RVMs and you're potentially sending them emails or text messages, just think of how effective all this can be as it kind of wraps up into one big giant ball of marketing, right? And it's a very cost-effective way in order to get people to recognize who you are and ultimately raise their hand and start a conversation. So emails, you can look at them as just an email that you can email people, or you could look at them as email that you can email people, and then also use that email to find people's social media profiles, create a custom audience, run ads to those people, and potentially message them within those social media platforms as well. The last piece of data that you get that you can use for marketing purposes within the app is your IP address. Now, the IP address, it stands for Internet Protocol, right? Like that even really matters, but like I said previously, it's like your internet address. It's where people can find you on the internet, just like people can find you where you live in your house. So think of an IP address like an address, right? It's your internet address. So how can you use the IP address and why did we include it in the data in the app? Well, if you have somebody's IP address, you now can take that and you can run ads to these people, right? You can run ads to them on virtually any site on the internet that accepts ads. You can run banner ads, side ads, all kinds of ads, right? You've been on Yahoo or you've been on random sites where you see ads on the side. Well, you can do that. So instead of just running ads to them in Facebook, you can follow them all the way around the internet and you can run very cost-effective ads to these people by simply having their IP address. And that's why we pull it within the Driving for Dollars app. And it's a kind of an obscure thing and a lot of people don't know how to use it, but it's a great way to layer your marketing and on top of that, stay relevant to people at a really, really cheap cost. I mean, these ads are, they're pennies. It's pennies to run ads to these people and layer the marketing in order to stay relevant and try and get them to ultimately contact you. They could click on the banner ad or whatever ad that's running and it could take them directly to your website, or it could just be reinforced marketing, right? Where they see you here, they hear from you there, they see your direct mail piece, they see your IP ad, they see your Facebook ad, they get your email, they get your Facebook message, all these things, right? You do enough of that to enough people, you're gonna get a consistent flow of leads, and that's ultimately what you're going for. So that's all the data that you get from the Driving for Dollars app. Those are the different tiers that you can sign up for that I mentioned at the beginning. That's how to kind of tie it all together so that you can create consistent lead flow from just this simple app and the data that it pulls within the exact farm areas that you want to generate deals. Now, if you want more from me, right? This was almost a half-hour video of kind of how we use the app to market to people. Well, if you want more from me, you can go listen to the Real Deals podcast. It's Deals with a Z. We've got almost 300 episodes out, and I go through everything that you could imagine on how we run my own business, how we market, how we do everything real estate investing wise. So make sure that you go check that out, whether it's on iTunes, Spotify, whatever. It's the Real Deals podcast. And number two is we have a variety of different ways that we help people that want to either be a part of a community or we have high-end coaching. For us, our biggest way that we help people is through our Deal Finders Academy. And it's basically a group of investors, about 120 investors from across the country that are in different markets that are not on top of each other. We help each other every single day, whether it be advice, whether it be Q&A, whether it be, scenarios on deals or rehabbing or marketing or whatever it is. It's essentially a mastermind group that's online. It's $199 a month. It's a phenomenal deal. It's been around for 5 years. And to be honest, a lot of our 120 members are original members. That's how good it is, right? People have stuck around for that long. And so if you're interested in joining our group, we'd love to have you. You can check out the link below and you can check it out and see if it's a good fit for you. We would love to talk with you and see if we can get you into our Deal Finders Academy. If for whatever reason maybe you don't want to join our academy, or we have somebody in your area already, we also have some additional resources that can really help you with negotiating with sellers. And in fact, it's called our Negotiating with Sellers training, and it's hours of phone calls that we have done in our own business here with sellers, and it talks through all the different strategies in negotiating, building rapport, getting prices out of people, all the things that are necessary when you go directly to seller and market to them and try and start a conversation in order to create deals. And so we can help you with that as well. We also have another training called Flipping Teardowns that you can get that helps you identify opportunities with teardowns within your farm areas that you're maybe doing direct mail to, or you're using the Driving for Dollars app in. So all these things we can help you with, but most importantly, if you want to join our Deal Finders Academy, we would love to have you. And if you join that, you get a lot of these other resources for free anyway, because we want to continue to build the community, and we want to really do everything that we can to make you successful as an investor. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully you got a lot out of it. Hopefully you got some of the secrets that I gave away, and make sure that you go down below, click on the link, go to thedealfindersacademy.com and reach out to us. And also make sure that you download our Driving for Dollars app if you have not already, and go put it to use. Now that you know how to use it properly, you can make sure to use all that data, build out great marketing campaigns, and ultimately get more leads and deals into your business.